I want to be clear with you all that a new day has come. To San Francisco, to Oakland, to Baltimore, to Ferguson, to Atlanta, there is a movement sweeping this country, and we are not going to stop until you stop killing us.
Shut it down! Shut it down!
I'm your host, Kat Brooks. It has been 758 days since October 7th, 2023, over 2 full years of an escalated genocide. With American support, Israel has murdered well over 80,000 Palestinians, injured nearly 200,000 others, most of them women and children. An estimated 9,500 people are missing. Over 540 aid workers have been confirmed murdered. The ongoing siege has also caused a famine that has claimed the lives of nearly 500 people, including near 200 children. We know from researchers outside of the Palestinian Health Ministry that these numbers are likely an undercount. Here on Law and Disorder, we've spent the majority of the Mondays of the last 2 years bringing you Palestine Post, where we push back on the Israeli and U.S. mainstream media campaign of disinformation in their attempts to justify a genocide. We begin our hour with Zahra Billoo, Executive Director of the Bay Area Office of the Council on American-Islamic Relations, or CAIR. The FCC says, I got to tell you, that KRSF recently honored me with a Voice of Truth award. There was no monetary compensation. Good morning, sister.
Good morning. Good morning.
Zahra, in addition to the outright murdering of Palestinian people, there has been an ongoing and incredibly violent effort to silence anyone who expresses dissent. This has happened through the murdering of journalists, my colleagues, truth tellers, the arresting and disappearing of truth tellers, through media blackouts, so much more. There's just been an onslaught of attempting to silence the truth. Today, we are going to discuss the recent arrest and detention of British Muslim journalist Sami Hamdi. Thank you for joining. Who is Sami Hamdi? What does he write? Who does he write for?
Yeah. Sami is a political analyst and a journalist who has been featured in written and digital content, video content, TV interviews for so many stations I couldn't list them all here. What he has really taken up as a primary cause in the last 2 years is justice for the people of Gaza. He has toured the United States and the world advocating for justice for the people of Gaza, and specifically in the United States, a position that he has taken that has resonated so deeply is that America should put America first. Why are we sending billions of dollars in military aid to Israel when, in his own words, people in our country in major cities are unhoused because they can't afford rent and they can't afford health care? And yet we just keep writing a blank check to Israel. That's what he said. And he said it on BBC. He said it on Sky News. He has said it on Ivy League university campuses and at mosques across the country. I was myself surprised to learn this, but he has, in the past, advised our own State Department. Like, that is how renowned his credentials are.
You're on my Facebook feed often because I that's where I get my information and my marching orders. But sometimes, I'm just scrolling, and so, I scrolled when you first posted about Sami, and I didn't really dig deep. But then when I did, I was actually surprised to hear that he's British. I expected him to be, a resident of Palestine,
And Lebanese, like Tunisian. I mean,
something.
right. And no, he holds a British passport. He was in the United States on a valid visa. He had entered more than a week prior to his detention, and he's been here repeatedly over the last 2 years. He was, in an unusual turn of events, abducted in the domestic terminal at San Francisco International Airport after having already gone through TSA. So the United States did not deny him entry the first time he came in, nor the second time he came in. He had entered twice recently. They picked him up in the domestic terminal. And everybody is surprised that he's British. Let me tell you, it is not ordinary for us to have a British national in ICE detention. Fortunately or unfortunately, that is not how we treat the residents and nationals of our so-called allied countries. But the United States has demonstrated under the Trump administration that everyone is a deportation priority and everybody will be dehumanized and locked up.
So what says the UK here? What says Britain? Where they at?
The UK has been advocating for him as well. We have been in touch with the consulate, and immigration policies and procedures in the United States are opaque and near impossible to navigate, even for someone who is so widely known as Sammy, who has as robust a legal team as he has, and who has the British consulate advocating for him, he remains in detention. And I'll tell you, Kat, a lot of people have asked why, like what's the basis the government has provided. But that could
But you know that's what I was going to ask you next.
and everyone's like, what did he do? And it's like, nothing. In fact, nothing, right? And I'll say like this is a personal and organizational endorsement as well. He was traveling between, you mentioned we were so honored to honor you. He was traveling from one of our galas in Sacramento to another gala in Tampa. So this is a British national traveling between events for a civil rights organization. He was here on a valid visa. And when he was approached by government agents last Sunday, so he's been in detention for a little over about 8 days now. He was told at that time, well, your visa was revoked. His visa had been revoked 2 days prior, and the first time he had heard of it was when he was being taken. That's it. That's all the government has said so far is you are out of status because we revoked your visa. No basis or explanation for revoking the visa. And again, no opportunity to cure that, because if the first time you learn that your visa has been revoked is when you are being taken into custody, you can't fix it then.
I know you just said things are opaque, and also even if there are clear rules, this is not an administration that actually follows them. But is there a process that's supposed to happen if you're aside from arrest, if you're in the United States and you're on a visa and they decided for whatever reason to revoke it, what is supposed to happen?
Well, this is the part that is uncharted territory. We haven't seen situations where people on valid visas in the United States having already entered, right? So he entered and he was given permission to stay until next April. So we have not seen prior, I have not, I'm sure it exists because prior administrations have done other horrible things in immigration, but it is not normal, was not normal that you would already be here and then they would suddenly revoke your visa. If anything, visas were being revoked when people attempt to enter the country. So I got on the plane, I had a valid visa, I landed, and I was told you can't come in. That I've seen a lot of. But I'm moving around the United States. I've been here for a long time, and now you're going to revoke my visa and not tell me? No, that is brand new. And so there was nothing that he could do. And it wasn't as though they were going to give him an opportunity right then. Mind you, he's at the airport, right? So they're not giving him an opportunity to say, okay, well, why don't you just go book another British Airways flight right now? We'll stay with you until you get on the plane and then have a nice life. No, that wasn't an option. It was, we're going to handcuff him and he needs to come with us.
What we haven't touched on is that this is at the behest of Israel. Yes, is that what we understand?
So what's concerning is behest of Israel would be very concerning and not surprising. This appears to be at the behest of right-wing online voices like Laura Loomer and Amy Meckelberg. So rewind a few months ago, you probably covered, and I know we've talked about all of these Palestinian children that are coming to the United States for life-saving medical treatment, right?
Yes.
So cute, adorable children, they're surviving a genocide. They're coming here to get treatment so they can recover from the things our bombs did to them. And Laura Loomer goes online. She takes the videos of these cute children and she says that, we need to stop issuing visas to people from Gaza using the children's faces. And the State Department complies and says, yeah, no more visas for people from
She
Gaza.
called them terrorists.
Right. A couple weeks later, they also close the visas for people from the West Bank. So that's what she's done thus far. Now, coming into last weekend, a couple of days prior to Sammy's abduction, Laura Loomer and another woman online, Amy Meckelberg, are targeting Sammy Hamdi, accusing him of all sorts of things, and then simultaneously saying good news is coming. So that's like Friday or so. Sunday morning, Sammy was abducted at about 7 a.m., Kat. Laura Loomer was the first person to tweet about it. Because, I mean, like when someone's getting detained, abducted, arrested, like we know this from experience at protests, right? But like also just other lived experiences is there's no time to make a phone call. There's like in that instance, like maybe you get out one message, you get out two messages, but you can't hold a press conference between when they tell you you're coming with us and they're putting the cuffs on you and taking your phone away. So Sammy had gotten out a couple of messages. None of those people had broadcast it yet. Right? Like they're just trying to figure out what's going on. They're in touch with family. Like what do we do? Laura Loomer is the first to tweet about it. So for many of us, myself included, the first person I heard about Sammy's detention from was Laura Loomer. And so Israel or Laura Loomer. It almost sounds as though, it appears as though Laura Loomer and Amy Meckelberg told the government, we need you to do this. And for at least the second time now, the government complied.
So many thoughts moving through my head. So the first, like, I'm a CAIR fan, right? Like, I'm someone who follows your work and uplifts. I didn't know there was a gala in Sacramento, right? So for me, I'm like, so are they, you've been the organization targeted, these women are stalking
Yeah.
the activity of CAIR along with the people associated with CAIR. That's the first thing that comes to my head. The second thing that comes to my head is these are not elected officials.
Right.
These are not people that anybody in this country has said, please lead us. Yet they're in collusion with the State Department and with enough power to have civilians
Yeah.
detained. And then the third one, and this is like me reaching a bit as my brain sometimes do, right? Through my organizer lenses, I try to connect dots.
Mhm.
The Lobby, the
Mhm.
film series, and people haven't seen it, go on YouTube, watch it. The film series, The Lobby, about the way Israel's comms networks and systems operate in this country
Right.
would not surprise me if Israel, right? Because we know this. They stock universe, they stock, and then they send teams to go. Let's say a college campus is going to have an event, a pro-Palestinian event. The folks that are part of this Israeli comms network, Zionist comms network, well, they're stalking, they're watching all these feeds, and then they send a team. I'm saying this not to you, sorry, for the listeners to
No, no,
understand.
no, you're right.
They send a team to these campuses. Somehow a swastika ends up on a campus, right? And now we're talking about anti-Semitism instead of
Mhm. Mhm.
a genocide. And so they find people and they feed these networks. So in my head, I'm like, I wonder if this is like an evolved version of
Mhm.
this network, which has been impacted by the truth telling that's happened the last 2 years. And they feed the information to these women, and then these women do what's
It's
done. Maybe that's total
no, no, no.
hypothesis.
It's good. It's hard to say like conclusively what it is. I'll tell you one other player in the network though and this like for me is part of the theory. So there's a group called Memory, and I forget what it stands for, but it's MEMRI, and they are like the godfathers of taking pro-Palestine video out of context and accusing the speaker of horrible things, right? And they stalk mosques, right? So like they will pull Friday sermon videos, they stalk public events. Many of us have been targeted by it, and even in 2021 when I was targeted and the whole issue with Pioneers and Levi Strauss Foundation backing out under Israeli support, targeting all of us happened. That was a memory video that was
Oh,
that was used, yes. And so there's a memory video of Sammy speaking out about resistance and what Palestinians have gone through, not encouraging violence, to be clear, despite what the government will allege, but in fact speaking out in support of self-determination. And so that's a memory video, right? And so that video exists on the internet and is being used and pointed to by people who are now justifying Sammy's detention, which came at the behest of, at least we know, Laura Loomer and Amy Meckelberg. Now, was it the government of Israel, or was it the Israel lobby? Was it Israel Communication Forces, or was it some combination of all of that, right? Because the other thing that the lobby does is the echo chamber, right? So they pick up a talking point and they repeat it and they repeat it and they repeat it until we can't tell the difference between what is real and what is their story. And so there's a lot going on here. And again, what's worrisome, and one other thing we haven't said, Kat, is this is a civilian, this is a British national, this is a journalist,
yeah.
right? And so the Committee to Protect Journalists has also like made a statement, asking Secretary Rubio, like clarify, like what are we saying about the press? And so this is happening in a context where hundreds of journalists have been killed by Israel in Gaza on purpose, where Israel is not allowing the free press into Gaza to see what is happening and say what we want about Hamas. Hamas is like, yes, bring the press in. Like, let's see, right? Because when the press comes in, and sunlight is brought in, we know that what Israel has alleged is not true, right? Like they can't, there's no evidence of it. And now, at the behest of pro-Israel right-wing online voices, a journalist is arrested in the United States. And the only thing the government has said thus far, and by the way, not in the filing, so in the filings and everything that they have submitted to the courts, to the immigration authorities, all they've said is that his visa was revoked. What they have said on social media is that he's pro this and he's pro that, and accusing him of saying some things, essentially, right? That's That's what we're allowed to do. That's what you and I have careers in, saying some things,
I mean,
right? And we're blessed.
that's the theory.
It's like, yeah, it's like one of the few last rights we have is we say things. That is, right, our First Amendment protected rights, and that's what the government is targeting him for.
Zara, I don't know if you've witnessed this happening, but I'm wondering if you can talk to the listeners about what that experience, what you've heard from the people that you support, because Sammy isn't the first one. Like what happens. I'm gonna take a point of privilege after that, and I'm gonna talk about a mini experience I had coming back from Denmark.
Right.
Um, but just paint a picture for us, because I don't know if people can understand what that moment is like. You going about your day, and then wham, what
Right.
happens?
So Sammy was, right, like living his life. He was the keynote at an event in Sacramento. His friend, one of our community members, brings him to the airport Sunday morning. Probably gets dropped off a little bit before 7 a.m. And all of us rushing through the airport, trying to catch my flight, check my bags, do what I need to. He goes through TSA. So everything's fine. He goes through TSA, and then he is quickly surrounded by a number of government officials who ask to confirm his identity, identify themselves, say your visa's been revoked and you need to come with us. Now, a lot of us may have seen videos of this, right? So this has been happening on streets, it's been happening outside of schools. And so, the airport is a little bit unusual, but that experience is similar. All of a sudden, right? And Sammy is fortunate enough that I think the agents may or may not have been masked. In some of these videos, remember, these people are being approached
Yeah,
by masked agents who
right.
are using incredible force. And there's a lot of videos of like women being thrown to the ground and
Yeah.
right, the scream of like, wait a second, am I being sexually assaulted? Like how do I know what's going on? And you immediately lose control of everything, right? So he is taken from the gate area to a government vehicle. At some point during that process, he is handcuffed and put in the back of a car, and he's driven to San Francisco. Now, he doesn't know where he's going either, right? Like he is taken to ICE in San Francisco where he is processed within 3 hours, right? And for listeners who are familiar with California geography, he goes from San Francisco International Airport to downtown San Francisco, where he is processed. And then he's put back in a car. He doesn't know where he's going, right? On his way to Golden State Annex in McFarland. It's a 5+ hour drive. So 7 a.m. to 10 a.m., goes to San Francisco and then is already put back in a car. Doesn't know where he's going, describes not knowing where he's going. Like you're just under someone else's control. Now, I think he was able to make one phone call before they took the phone away from him, and maybe he sent some text messages, right? But he also has no contact, right? Like he's nothing. So no phone. I don't think he's fed. I know it's not a comfortable ride. Like most of us don't like being in the backseat of a car to begin with. Now imagine being in the backseat of a car that some government agent is driving without any regard for you and you're cuffed. He's taken to the detention facility in McFarland, California. Whatever is on his body is taken from him. Any papers, his passport, he doesn't have his luggage. His luggage got on the plane and went to wherever he was going. He has nothing, no way of reaching the outside world. He gets settled in, and again, no phone calls, nothing. We at this point are now like, where is Sammy Hamdi, right? And we're using the ICE detainee locator to find him. I think later in the day, maybe he gets one phone call, but we drove up from Orange County to McFarland, California on Monday morning. So he was abducted at 7 a.m. The next time he sees a person he knows is Monday afternoon, right? And he doesn't know we're coming either. We just had to show up and present ourselves as his attorneys. Now, in this time, remember, they are wearing jumpsuits. They are on a diet that the facility sets, on a schedule that the facility sets. It's cold. There are a lot of people in each room they're in. He's surrounded by other strangers. And Sammy has said, and something that has really resonated for me is that Sammy is one of the highest profile immigration detainees, and in fact, a political prisoner in California at the moment. There are upwards of 700 other people in that facility, Kat, and it is one of numerous detention facilities in California, and most of them do not have a robust legal team or access to the communications platforms that Sammy has. But everything, he hasn't seen his family. He doesn't know when he's going home. Everything is under strict control. Everything is monitored. In some other states, the facilities are no contact, by the way. So when you go in to visit them, you can't actually like hug them or shake their hands. California, at least as in my experience, is allowing like a welcome hug and that kind of thing. Everything is monitored. I asked yesterday about access to news. They get some occasional USA Today, nothing else. They don't have access to the internet. After you settle in, you can make phone calls and text messages. But let me tell you about text messages, 25 cents a text message. When was the last time you paid
Whoa.
25 cents a text message? That's wild,
And
right?
that would come out of your books, like there's commissary in the same way that like in
Yeah,
regular
yeah,
concentration camp.
exactly. Yeah, yeah, yeah. And everything, right? So you want food that's not jail food? Commissary. Well, you have to have money to put in commissary, right? Like
And is there halal stuff in commissary?
there is, to the best of my knowledge, no.
Well, I was being a
I know
little
that I know
facetious.
California is accommodating some halal diet, but my understanding is jail food is barely food, even if
Yeah.
it's halal food, right? And so
Yeah.
he's not being force-fed pork or anything of that sort, but his access to things he wants is very limited. And there's like rules about this thing that like cat don't make sense. So when I go in as an attorney, I can take papers in, right? Family or friends go in, nothing, no papers. Family or friends go in, they can take coins in to buy him food from the vending machine. But because I get to take papers in, I don't get to take coins in. Like, how are people? And again, what strikes me is Sammy has said, and we agree, like he is the most prominent. I don't know of any more prominent immigration detainee in California right now. But for every Sammy, there's hundreds of people who don't have a legal team or commissary money or text message money. And in many cases, remember if they're families, I asked the lobby staff when I was trying to go in yesterday this, I said, if I'm here and I'm detained and my family is also out of status, like you must be hearing from a lot of people who are scared to visit, right? Like if I'm undocumented, I'm going to walk into a detention facility to visit my undocumented partner. Like that's the kind of thing that breaks apart families. And the last thing I'll say, Kat, that we've seen a lot of is that particularly with these political detainees, is that they are picked up in one place and immediately shipped somewhere else, right? So our co-counsel has another client who went to 3 detention facilities in 24 hours between the East Coast and being taken to New Orleans, Louisiana, right? And so one of the things we did last week is we went to the courts and we said we need to protect Sammy's ability to stay in California while he fights this, right? And so we did get a temporary restraining order. The government cannot move him out of California because I don't want to be picked up by ICE anywhere, but if it had to be somewhere and I had to fight it in the courts, it's going to be California.
Two more questions, and then I'm going to go on to our comrade Rami, who's patiently waiting in the wings, to talk to us about arms embargoes. So as I was going to take a point of privilege, I'm going to say it real fast. So my dad makes this joke whenever I leave the country. And he's like, "Oh, so we're going to try this again. You're gonna let's see if they let you in again." And this is like he's making that joke since before, this current moment, and I'm like, who am I, But I was coming back from Denmark and I'm going through immigration and my picture's not registering in the camera. Like there's a thing, camera, and you put your face in, y'all, and it's just, the guy's like, try again, try again, try again. So then we do this 3 times and he says, go over there. So I go over there right, and then I hear my dad's words in my ears. I'm like, oh God. So yeah, we go. So I hand my passport to the lady. She's so nice, Sarah. She's so, where were you? How was your trip? She's just talking and you look at my passport and ask me all these questions. And I was on a writing retreat, like nothing to do political at all. I was being a playwright for a week in Denmark of all places. So she's talking, 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 talking. I'm like, all right, there's something wrong with the camera. And then it just flips and she hands my passport to this guy behind her and says, her, and points at me. And this guy's like, come with me. So I start to walk. We're walking towards a small room and I stop. I was like, this is wait. And nobody, right? Nobody know. So I asked the guy, I stopped and I said, where are we going and why?
Mm.
And this man looked at me and he said, move, right? He said, I don't know why, move. So I did. I managed to get off one text message to my dude, right? Like I don't know what's happening, but this is where I'm at. And then I got yelled at for my text message, and then you know me and my mouth. So I'm Like, you're not allowed to phone. I said, but you're allowed to kidnap me. Like, what's happening? They leave me there. Then nobody talks to me for upwards of what I believe was about half an hour. They come back, they throw my passport at me and tell me I'm free to go. And I made a decision in that moment, right? I was like, I could make a point here, but I really just wanted to get home to my kid and my guy. So, I was like, this isn't the hill to die on. That hill is probably in the future. My point of telling that story is just to reinforce what you just said. All of the people that we don't know about that are being abducted and disappeared in this moment that have no voice, right? This is a phenomenon that is sweeping this country that we all should be concerned about, right? Like, and if it can be someone as prominent as Sammy, and y'all can't get them out, right? So what happens to people, Zara? And then I'm gonna let you go. What happens if they don't get out? Like, what's gonna happen to Sammy if you can't get him out? Like, do we know? Like, he could be there for you. Like,
We're going to get him out. We are going
right
to
on.
get him out. We are putting
Inshallah.
all of the resources into this, inshallah. But what happens to people who don't get out, right? And Kat, the other thing about Sammy that, privileges him is he has a country to go back to that we haven't bombed, right? Like imagine Pakistan, imagine Yemen, imagine Palestine, Syria, Afghanistan. We have a lot of clients from Afghanistan, right? Is we have bombed all of those countries. People can't get travel documents, right? Like they risk safety if they are sent back. And so those people, right? One, in many, many cases, cannot afford an attorney. And let me tell you, paying for removal defense on the private market, you're looking at minimum $15,000 upfront. That's the retainer that exists in some of these cases, right? And that's to start 15, 20. We had somebody that told us they were quoted 80,000, 30,000 upfront. Where are you going to get that money? So you can't get the money, right? You stay locked up. You keep fighting, and remember, we're in a government shutdown where even ICE is being fully transformed from within, right? And so
Right.
people are getting fired, judges are getting fired, agents are getting fired, right? New folks are being brought in. Everything is slow. Dates get pushed out. If they can't find you, if they can't get you back to your country, they're going to send you to a third country where you have nothing. If they can get you back to your country, you're still risking all sorts of violence there in many instances, or being separated permanently from your families, right? And so I'll give you a much lower profile example. I know of another case where somebody was picked up in March. It is November. They are still detained without a prospect on what is to come. And they want to stay. There's nowhere to go back to. It's months, right? Even if they are going to deport you, the question is, when do you then get in line for the plane? Right? Like where the plane goes, yes, but when do you get in line for it, right? And again, no money for commissary, unless you're going to work slave wages inside, right? And so it's not a good look. And what we know right now is that even with all of the budget issues at the national level, there's continually money being poured into ICE so that they can build more detention facilities. I was hearing over the weekend on Democracy Now! That they are building capacity to hold thousands of more people. And the only way to build it fast, Kat, is tent camps.
They're like Alligator Island. All right, Zara, I gotta move on. We will have you back. Thank you for coming on, and thank you for your work. And
Likewise.
let us
Like
know how we can be of service. We've been speaking to Zahra Billoo, Executive Director of the Bay Area Office of the Council on American-Islamic Relations, CAIR SF. That takes us to 8:37 in the morning here on Law and Disorder. I am your host, Kat Brooks. Israeli forces have killed another Palestinian in Gaza, despite a United States brokered ceasefire bringing the whole sense of so-called truth, the performative truth, to 236, as Hamas handed over remains of three more captives. Here to discuss this and more is Rami, an organizer with the Palestinian Youth Movement. Hi.
Hi, Kat. Good morning.
Good morning. Thank you for coming on and thank you for your patience.
Thanks
I
for
want to
having me.
I want to talk. I want to get both like status of ceasefire and I want to get Oakland arms embargo in. And we got about 10 minutes to do it. So that's the context of which we're talking. I'm sorry that I'm running a little bit behind. So it's the so-called ceasefire went into effect on October 10th. It is November 3rd. In that time, Rami, how many days have there been where Israel ain't dropped a bomb in Gaza?
So far zero. and we've seen almost 300 Palestinians killed in this time period. So we're seeing numbers that are just as deadly as before the ceasefire agreement.
And what about aid? Because that was the other piece of it. The aid was supposed to come in, and people that are literally starving to death, yes, are supposed to be able to start to get some nutrition. What's happening with that?
Aid has been severely restricted. We are not seeing even a fraction of the amount of aid that needs to be let in to actually feed people in Gaza. Israel is using all sorts of tactics, all kinds of propaganda to say that bodies aren't being, the bodies that they bombed to uh, their own hostage bodies that are unrecoverable
That
because
part.
Israel has bombed Gaza so badly. So imagine the scale of that for children, mothers, families trying to recover their own people, let alone their own hostages. Um, they are using that as a condition of restricting aid, of sabotaging the ceasefire agreement. And I think overall it's like, what do we expect from an agreement that was brokered by the
A
United
rapist?
States, right? A rapist and the United States who's funding this genocide, bankrolling this genocide. How can we expect that there's going to be any accountability of Israel, let alone any international institution that's not able to do so? So yeah, we're seeing horrible conditions persist. We saw even within the line that the agreement has said is a safe zone, which has happened over the past 2 years. Palestinians are being killed. I think 3 children were injured in an airstrike at a wedding today. There are still quadcopters and drones and gunfire that are injuring and killing Palestinians within any kind of safe zone. So I think what this tells us as people of conscience and as a public is that Israel will never, ever give up its genocide. It will never give up its mass killings of Palestinians. It will never forfeit um, the genocide that it has enacted for the past 2 years and 75 years, unless there is an actual tangible stop to these weapons that are being provided by the United States. There is no way that a ceasefire will actually take effect without an arms embargo. I think that is the message that's coming out of the ceasefire agreement.
And we knew that when you saw my eyes diverted, I was actually looking at the Bay Area Palestine Youth Movement statement about the ceasefire, right? Which is the marching orders I followed. It was, yes, okay, let's celebrate because, or take a breath with Palestinians. And, right, we know it wasn't my place to say this isn't real until
Mm-hmm.
my Palestinian comrades said this isn't real. But we all sort of knew that this was what was going to happen because Israel and what I was looking for is there was somewhere in the statement where I think it said something about Israel's genocidal plan to liquidate Palestinians completely out of Palestine. That's the agenda no matter what they say, yeah. Like
Mm-hmm.
everything else is performance.
Mm-hmm. Absolutely it is. And yeah, I mean, within the context too of Palestinians, the right to resist, etc., the United States will and Israel, of course, will do anything that they can to ensure that Palestinian resistance is completely off the table, that the any type of sovereignty or um, for any type of Palestinian state is also never on the table. I'm thinking about Marwan Barghouti, who is still held in
Mm-hmm.
Israeli prisons
Mm-hmm.
for over 40 years. And now, um, Trump is having talks about his potential. I mean, they will do anything to ensure that the national cause, the Palestinian national cause, stays fragmented, stays disjointed, and doesn't have a future of survival. And that's one thing that we're fighting for in the diaspora as well, is we're fighting against this fragmentation. We're fighting against this lack of a national cause that we have because uh, here in the belly of the beast and its imperial colony is restricting any type of national identity of the Palestinian people, and that's exactly what we're fighting against.
Rami, what I know about PYM is that you all are well studied, and so as you were talking, I was reflecting on previous genocides that have come to an end. Right. So Rwanda is probably the one that everybody knows. I mean, it was awful. It was a contracted, right, period of time. I'm wondering if, as part of y'all's work as solutionaries, right, have you looked at other places and found threads that may be relevant to the organizing, the call to action for those of us that are demanding a free Palestine?
Yeah, this is a really, really great question. I think what the past 2 years have forced us to do is to look at the situation, the genocide, the mass starvation and the mass slaughter, and the long occupation of the Palestinian people, and say, this is not an isolated case. This is not what's happening to the Palestinian people has been done before. And we can argue it's happening right now. It's happening to people in Sudan. It's happening in the Congo. It's happening all over the world by the same money, the same power. It There is a war being waged on people all over the world. And there's a war being waged here in this country
That's right.
on our Black communities, on our immigrant communities. And I have to say this because it's so relevant right now. The United States would rather scapegoat immigrants and people who really, actually make this country survive and work. They would rather scapegoat those people and funnel money into the military, into ICE, into surveillance, than actually take care of the people in this country. And that's what they've always done. And I'd argue that they even want to keep the people in this country in a state of injury so that they're not able to fight back.
I mean, that's the tape right there.
Exactly.
That's why
And
mutual aid is so important.
exactly. That's why mutual aid is so important, because we can only care for each other because we know the government's not going to care for us. We're seeing now that SNAP is completely being cut. So we are seeing a war being waged by the ruling class on the working class in this country. We're even seeing this in Oakland. We're seeing the flock cameras in Oakland that's on the table right now. This is the most
Mass surveillance.
mass surveillance, and to the point where Flock will be the owners of these cameras, not the city.
Funded by Palantir. Look, I'm just taking a note to get because people need to understand Palantir is in the mix here.
Why
And
is Palantir? Why are they in Oakland?
in Oakland on Panther ground.
Me, all to say, meanwhile, Oakland is shipping out military cargo to Israel.
Right.
These are all connected. Why is our city, why is the Bay Area? And one thing that I want to say is when people were celebrating the National Guard being, not being brought to Oakland, which was a major, or to the Bay Area, which is a major win, and also is a product of the billionaires calling Trump and saying, there's no need to bring the National Guard here because we'll clean up the Bay Area ourselves. What does
Tell
that
the
mean?
truth, Rami. Come on and tell some truth.
What does that mean?
Yeah.
That means that things exactly like Flock, which are being funded by Palantir, are going to be put in our cities for mass surveillance, for these tech companies to surveil us, for the government to surveil us. And they don't have enough money to fund SNAP. They don't have enough money to help the working class, but they have money to funnel into mass surveillance and to Israel. How does that make sense?
They want $2.25 million of Oaklanders' money to build a system when we just cut everything except for the police. Rami, I only got 2 minutes, but listen, you got me started. So you have to come on earlier. Even earlier. We'll start with the top of the hour of you, because this is the kind of analysis that we need to be having right now. Because people need to understand, right, what the context really is so that we can adequately design the organize. In my personal opinion, we all just need to sit down. and stop participating. And I'm going to start saying that everywhere out loud. Just sit down. And for that, we do need mutual aid, right? I don't say that flippantly, then because then we're going to figure out we're going to feed people and lights and water and all that stuff. But as long as we are cogs in the wheel is going to continue to turn. I need an update from you, my dear, on the Oakland arms embargo. I know there's an event coming up, and what is happening. What was when I first started covering this, I was like, who's the target? Like, who do I name and start like doing live instas at? We were not in the place for that conversation. So I'm wondering, like, what do we have a target? What's the messaging? What's the marching orders, my G?
Yeah, so what we know right now is um, Mayor Barbara Lee has responded to comment about our campaign. We've heard from multiple people in the city that they're investigating, they're looking into what's happening. We need more. The people need more. We know that Oakland has jurisdiction over its airport. It has agency over what comes in and out of its ports. We know this as a fact. The city council and specifically the Port Authority um, need to act quickly in terms of the military cargo that's continuing to flow out of Oakland. F-35 fighter jet components are literally flowing out of the Oakland airport as we speak. And in this moment, where Israel has killed 300 Palestinians since this faux ceasefire agreement, we need action immediately. And the way that this is connected to ICE, to surveillance, and the ways that our cities do not fund the working class and what we need, this is an imperative issue. It's a bread and butter issue for people in Oakland.
Rami, give the socials.
Yes, so you can follow Oakland Arms Embargo on Instagram, and you can follow Bay Area PYM on Instagram to stay updated with the campaign. We're going to have call to actions. We need everybody on board to do this. Armsembargonow.com. Please sign the petition. We have over 10,000 signatures. We have over 150 endorsements, including major unions. We need to make sure that this is an issue that all Oaklanders are involved in. Tell your friends and family how Oakland is facilitating this genocide and urging it to stop.
Right on, Rami. All right. We will talk soon. Thank you so much for
Thank,
coming on the show this morning.